Welcome to Brother Owl's Garden. I'm Brian, and I honor your presence here today. Today, I'm delighted to welcome a friend of mine. Her name is Jaz Goven. She hails all the way from Cheshire in the UK, and she now lives here in Chiang Mai, Thailand. She's been working in the healing arts for over 2 decades, and she has a certain specific focus on subconscious programming as an angle to her healing arts. She has created 2 different platforms of her own creation, one of which we'll be speaking primarily about today, which Jaz likes to call fast track technique. And so without any further ado, I would like to introduce our special guest today, my friend, Jaz Goven. Welcome, Jaz.
Hi, Brian, and thank you. This is really exciting.
Well, I'm honored to have you here. And I remember what a kind-hearted person you are. And that's the kind of people that I welcome onto this platform. So thank you for sharing everything that you'll be sharing with us today. We really appreciate your presence. Jaz, can you tell us in the earlier days what sort of led to and culminated into what you now have created, which you call fast track technique? Can you give us a little bit of background on that?
Yes, I think many people like me, Brian, and maybe you yourself, we get into this healing business because primarily we need it for ourselves.
Right.
We didn't decide to become a healer. We needed it, and I needed it. And what happened to me was I got physically shut down, couldn't move, and they thought there was something wrong with my brain, and they put me under a CAT scan to find out what had happened to me. But in actual fact, what it was a suppression of emotions, which I had no idea I was doing.
Yeah.
Always been interested in weird stuff or out of the box stuff, but I'd never understood anything about trapped emotions. And so I had been depriving myself of what I needed by being strong and all that stiff upper lip stuff. And what happened, I just became rigid and couldn't move.
Yeah.
And so it was an opportunity, obviously it's a massive wake-up call, to start looking at what was going on inside me that the doctors couldn't help me with, and start to unravel that ball of string. So that really got me on the path of looking at alternative ideas, suggestions, and practices to unravel that, let's just say, trapped emotional shutdown.
Yeah. You know, Jaz, as you're aware, and most of our viewers are in tune to all this as well, but just a reference, it seems that although the terminology can vary, which is fine, it seems that there are energy bodies, energy masses, storages of impacts that reside or are stored physically in our body, not only in our mind. We are multi-dimensional beings, and within the physical dimension, we have a manifestation of beliefs, or as my friend Rick would say, perfect pictures. Things are supposed to be this way. If I don't do this, I'm not that. All these snapshots of belief, which then resonate in our being and affect us. And if they're false or undesirable or unhealthy in some way, they can create anomalies within us that will just completely play out in the whole physical realm and cause illness. And these beliefs or these perfect pictures are overlaid with the emotions. The emotions are the covering or the next layer up. That because if we can identify the emotions that are within us, and if we can look under them, well, there's going to be those core beliefs or perfect pictures or et cetera that are causing that. And this is affecting every single one of us right now and always. So nobody is unique for having such things, but good on you for identifying them, acknowledging them, and facing them, And then obviously you're going to tell me about how, you worked through your process to a point where now you can help others,
Mm.
you know.
So what happened was, I tend to do things, jump off the cliff and just hope that there's a safety net there. And so I got into this spiritual practice, and I decided to open my own healing center. This was when I lived in Bangkok in 2002. It's about the only date that I do remember, but it was 2002, and I opened a healing center called New Beginnings. And it was co-founded with a few of us. We all thought we knew everything, and actually we knew nothing at all, but it was a great place to start. And it was my job within that, it was to interview all the healers that came that wanted to work with us. And so I got to experience all of these amazing modalities. Right. And what I came to the decision or the conclusion was that everything works, but not everything works for everybody because we're all different.
Okay, good point. Good point. So there is a tailoring to the individual.
Absolutely. And I happen to be extremely good at matching the right person with the right modality. I just knew what to do. And of course, I was matching people to other people's modalities because I didn't have one for myself. I was practicing and I was learning everything. And during all of that practice and learning, what became very clear to me is what Jaz likes is what is simple, powerful, and duplicable. I have to share. I don't want to be sat at the top of a mountain and people say, oh, you've got to go to Jaz to get the results. I want to share. I love to teach, and it doesn't matter what it is. I'll be learning something one day and I'm teaching it the next. I can't not do it. And
well, I can respect that. I respect non-proprietariness in the healing arts, and I don't respect proprietary angles with the healing arts, because I think that although everyone deserves to receive some fair energy exchange for what they're doing, I don't like like I said, keeping everything locked down, secret to yourself, kind of branded and all that, I don't like that. It should be shared and open with people. We're all here to help each other.
And I also believe everything should be simple, easy, and fun. I think, and I can be my own worst enemy in this, but I think we take ourselves way too seriously. And I think when we get on this spiritual path and we learn all this stuff, we take our stuff so seriously. And of course, it is to recognize it and to give it the place or the space it deserves, but it's not to hold on to it. It's like we're moving into a huge awakening, thanks to COVID and associated situations. And it's giving us all an amazing opportunity to change into a vibration and work from a place of where everything is happening for us, rather than before when it was everything was happening to me and I'm a victim and you've got to change for me to feel abundant.
I understand. And Jaz, I also liked when you were describing your healing center, New Beginnings, that you had engaged in Bangkok. I like how you said, you went in there thinking that you knew it all, and you quickly realized, you didn't know anything. And it reminded me back in my university days. I can remember in my philosophy class, I adored my professor. I would love to go after class and chat with him. And in one particular instance, I went after class and chatted with him. And I said, I have to tell you, Professor, I've reached a point where I've realized consciously that the more I learn, the less I know. Yes. And I hadn't leaped over that yet. I had only arrived there. And I said, I don't understand what's happening, but what I can tell you for sure is the more I learn, the less I know. And his response was classic. He just threw his head back in laughter and he went, oh, you've arrived. And I wasn't quite arrived enough to know really what he meant by I've arrived, because all I knew was if I keep increasing my knowledge, I keep decreasing my understanding. What's going on? Why? That's not what I thought would be. And in other words, you've pierced through that veil, Brian. And I think that the same kind of thing, knowing that you really don't know anything is a form of wisdom. It's a preliminary wisdom, and it also opens us up to be receptive to more and more that was outside of what we had imagined or such. And Jaz, how about specifically fast track technique? You simple, fun, easy, effective. What did you build all of these experiences into? Tell us what fast track technique actually is, Jaz.
It is a system that I've developed through all my experiences of attending workshops and trainings. My disappointment with the response from the trainer or the facilitator. It was like, when it was done, it's over, and you're just somebody else. There was nobody to support me with my questions after I'd paid my 3,000 baht or whatever. Okay. And as I learned more and more, and of course I had huge opportunities to learn all sorts, because that was my job, was to experience everything, is I started to see, and I say this with absolute respect, I was thinking, well, there's a limitation there, or you can do that here, but you can't do that. So how many of these things do we have to learn to be able to cover everything we need? So completely in ignorance, I decided to create a system that was without boundaries. And I based that system on me not knowing the answers. I based it on me knowing the questions for myself, and knowing that the answers are out there. And the fast track technique is based on my passion for negative subconscious programming. I've seen how that's played out in my life, still does, no matter how much work I do, it plays out. And so the system that I created started with me thinking I was working with the conscious mind and subconscious programming. And I developed a set of cards that look a bit like this. And they have banners across here, which represents the issue that is buried in the subconscious that is creating the restriction. And so using muscle testing, which I use all the time, I'm able to bypass the conscious mind and get into the subconscious and find out what's really going on. And so as that evolved, I created this system, and as it evolved, I got to understand what I was actually doing was I was tuning in to the higher self of the client. So if you think of your higher self knows who you are, why you're here, and what you need. Yeah. We think we do. And your subconscious remembers everything that's in the way of that. By using this system, which is 25 cards with different banners, we can go into your subconscious and we can go beyond that, because your higher self guides me, or the facilitator of Magical You, to ask the right questions, to go to the right cards, to get into the subconscious and release the vibration of that. Simple, easy, and fun.
So would it be incorrect, Jaz, to say that by fast track, it kind of means shortcut?
It means it's a shortcut, but I prefer to say it's a direct route. It's a laser.
Yeah, it's very direct. Yeah.
Shortcut looks like you're cutting corners, but it's direct, and it's like we're going in this direction, and your higher self knows how to help us be the channel, the vehicle for that through this system. And so when I created it to have no boundaries, no restrictions, I had no idea what I meant. but I haven't found anything that Fast Track can't handle. And as a facilitator,
Okay.
I don't have to understand what the person's real problem is because they already know what it is.
Okay, there are some, in fairness, who would say, oh, that's quite a liberty you're affording yourself. But then also, on the other hand, and I would take this stance, that betrays a higher wisdom to me. I don't consider that to be any kind of a cop-out at all, because deep down inside, we do know. The question is whether we are willing and able to face it. And then if so, do we have the tools to process our way through it? And in a lot of cases, maybe not. And so enter the fast track practitioner. By the way, Jaz, how does one become a fast track practitioner? Because you don't want to keep it, it's not only about you. You want to empower other practitioners to be able to offer this modality to people. So how does one become a certified fast track technique practitioner?
Well, it's quite simple. There are 3 levels, really. One is where you learn to work with the cards. I train you how to work with the cards and to work the very, very simple system. That's all most people need. If you want to go a bit further and start to work with other people as a practitioner or as a person to help your own family, then we take you to level 2. And that's where the practitioner level happens. And you're coached then to work with other people. And if you really fall in love with it, which several people have, then you can become a trainer and train others to do the same. The main thing with Fast Track is that it opens you up beyond anything that, in my experience, that I have ever experienced, because when you come from this place of knowing you don't have the answer, but you have the question. So when you ask the question and you're looking at the cards to find out which card it is, what's actually happening is that the information is channeling in. And because you're distracted and looking at the cards, you can let it come in, and you get to, after a short time, you get to know which cards it is, even without the muscle testing. It's quite fun.
Sort of intuiting.
Absolutely. Which is what we do anyway, right?
Well, I like that you've said this, because I was just having a conversation with a good friend of mine, Rick, about how all of these different modalities, whether you name them all, really, they are just methods of accessing information.
Yes.
Within us. And,
yes.
Like you said, all of them work, but not all of them work for all people. And so let's find the ones that work, best for each person. Jaz, would it be possible for you to show us a little bit more of how Fast Track might play out as you practice it? Could you give us, if that's possible, some sort of a demonstration, just to have a better idea what it looks like to be in a Fast Track session?
Yes.
Okay.
So obviously what we do is we look at what the person perceives to be the problem. That's on the surface, and Fast Track will go wherever it needs to go. It will, and also just mentioning, it can't go anywhere where you're not ready to let anything go. But it goes with what's available at that time to be let go. And as you know, I'm sure, Brian, there's different levels and different learnings to be had as we unravel this stuff. So if you said, oh, I want to let go of all my lack of self-worth, it couldn't do that in one session, but it could go in certain threads. So you start to have an experience of feeling more worthy or whatever. So what I thought would be fun today is we all, or the majority of us, experience overwhelm over something or other. COVID has brought up a lot of overwhelm for people. We're not certain of the future. We panic a lot. And there's different things that we can become overwhelmed. I tend, as a sensitive person, to get overwhelmed quite easily when I don't know what to do. Things aren't going the way I think they should. So I will go into overwhelm. But what you mentioned earlier on, Brian, about being a bit overwhelmed by technology. I totally get that one too. And I thought, well,
I'm not great at it.
we'll use you as a guinea pig to experience or we need to access where overwhelm is being remembered in your body and do a physical release on that. And so you can experience how that feels and maybe explain that or share that with the people that are watching videos. That's okay.
I hope so, because we're
Trust
rolling
me.
live.
Absolutely. So I'm going to use muscle testing. This is called the O-ring test. And when I say something that's true, my finger and thumb will hold together strong. So my name is Jaz. Seems to be Jaz. My name is Brian. And it's going through. So I'll do the muscle testing, Brian. And I'm more used to it. We can tend to get in our own way when we first start with muscle testing. So now Brian's given me permission to be proxy for him. Okay. So I am able now to access information from him, and we know that his higher self is here and given full permission. Okay. So using muscle testing, I'm just going to find out, can I be proxy for Brian? And I'm getting a yes. So is Brian's level of overwhelm connected to technology affecting him negatively more than 50%? Yes. More than 60? Yes. More than 70? No. 60 to 65? No. 65, 66, 67, 68. So that as a vibration is with you pretty much all the time, whether you're experiencing overwhelm or not. That's quite high. And it will stop you being, it will stop you being grounded. All right, so let's find out. Is there something of major significance we can release for Brian that will reduce his overwhelm? Yes. Is it more than one aspect? No. Is it one? So obviously your higher self is playing the game with us today and allowing us to do this very, very fast. In a typical fast track session, I will look for root causes, resistance to change, and I cover a lot of different areas, but this is a demonstration, so it's for fun. The cards are set out in a pyramid, and they all look like this. So it doesn't matter that you don't know what the cards look like, Brian. We're going to find out via your higher self where this card is that we can release that will reduce your overwhelm. Is it card number 1? No. Is it line number 1? No. Line number 2? No. Is it line number 3? Yes. So I'm reading the cards from left to right. Is it the body? Is it the heart? Is it trauma? Okay, it's trauma. Makes sense. There's 4 aspects to trauma in this system. Is it shock? Is it trauma? Is it cellular trauma? Is it cellular memory? So you've got all 3 of those. This is a big deal.
Sorry.
Well, no, that's what you're walking around with. Did this start at a specific age? Yes. I'm going to take a guess. Did it start before he was 30 years old? Yeah. Before he was 20? Before he was 10? No. 10 to 15, 15, 16, 17. So age 17, is that significant to you in any way, Brian?
I moved from one state to another in my 16th year. And the 17th year was a very difficult year of readjustment in a new school with everything new, and a profound sense of alienation, not belonging, rejection, and things that went with it. It turned around also in that year, but it went real. That was the bottoming out, and then it picked up, and I made my way through, and I'm still friends with many of the people that I was close to then.
Mm.
So that was a time of great, I will definitely say, I'm actually quite impressed that you've done this already. Not that I should be surprised at all. I believe in you or I wouldn't invite you.
So
But
just
this
to,
is a fast track.
yeah, and just to say is I haven't got a clue, but I've asked the question and your higher self is saying, oh, go here, Jazz. And this is the way in. This is
Yeah.
how brilliant this system is.
In my memory, Jazz, I could describe for you where I am standing right now in that time. I'm standing at the personal lockers, which were just wooden cubicles without doors on them. The locker area of the band room, because I played in the band. And that was an area where I would have many, many moments of awareness of how I'm suffering. It was when I would go into my cubicle to get my lunch or whatever it was, seemed to be like a little kind of a, let me get away from here and go back to the closet and, decompress.
Overwhelm.
And yeah. And that's where I went straight back to when you said 17, I went right back to there.
Right.
And so, yeah, that is still resonating in me. And now my viewers know a little bit more about me. So, all right.
Okay.
So now,
well, they know
next?
about your programming. It's just the programming we're working. So let's find out, do we need to know more? Now that information is coming by your higher self. That if we've got, yes, we needed to know more, it's not me that needs to know more, it's you, because it's giving you the wisdom that you need about a particular situation. So, but now we know what it is. And the thing is, why this is so relevant, Brian, is yes, there was the trauma that happened. Then that gets buried, and it happens multiple times in a year. It gets remembered at a cellular level in your body. So there's a lot of it. And then what happens is you make a decision to remember these situations so they don't happen again, or you're ready for them. And what that does, and this is the most important one, is it keeps that overwhelm alive rather than letting it go. We do it for a right reason, but it turns on us because we're looking for overwhelm all the time.
Is it kind of like peeling off a scab to see how the wound is healing?
I'll have to think about that one, but it sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like it's just always there, and it builds and it builds and it builds. So now we have permission to release it.
Yes.
And I'm going to use a crystal here. I use crystals, magnets, but if you will join me and use the 2 fingers of your hand and bring them to the bridge of your nose.
Right hand or left hand, doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter.
These 2 fingers?
Yep. Okay. And just put it to the bridge of your nose. And repeat what I say. And if I say something that doesn't feel quite right, Brian, change it. And bring it over the top of your head, down to the base of your neck. Like this. Okay. I fast track the release.
I fast track the release.
Of all overwhelm.
Of all overwhelm.
Going back to the age of 17.
Going back to the age of 17.
And all the shock.
And all the shock.
The trauma.
The trauma.
Cellular trauma.
Cellular trauma.
And cellular memory.
And cellular memory.
That has been keeping me overwhelmed.
That has been keeping me overwhelmed.
I release it from everywhere in my body.
I release it from everywhere in my body.
And I'm just going to make this up. And I replace it with.
And I replace it with.
Grounded.
Grounded.
Balanced.
Balance.
What else?
Wholeness.
Yes.
And peace.
I release the need to remember overwhelm.
I release the need to remember overwhelm.
Now.
Now.
Whoa. Take a deep breath when you're ready.
So I feel within my head a degree of lightness more in my head. That might be where it was residing. I don't know.
And when you close your eyes and you think about that room without the door, what does it feel like when you look at that picture now?
Now I look at it without the charge. I feel I can observe it and I see it and it's all the same, but I'm not affected. I'm not plugged into it emotionally, is the best thing I could tell you.
Exactly.
Now I just see it.
Okay, great. Amazing, huh?
Pardon me?
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that nearly 100% gone.
So when I muscle tested to start with, it was you were being affected negatively 68% by overwhelm. Let's find out what's happened now. So is Brian being affected by overwhelm more than 50%, more than 40%, 30%, 20%, 10%, 10 to 15, 15, 16, 17, 18%. Would you like to know what that 18% is about? Okay. Is there another card for that? Is it line number 1, line number 2, line number 3, the body, the heart? Is this Brian's heart? Is it his emotional heart? His physical heart? Can we have more information? Is that line number 1, 2, 3? The body, trauma, old vibrations, conflict, forgiveness. Is it forgiveness? Is it pain, suffering, sacrifice, persecution? So it's persecution. Is this Brian feeling persecuted? Yes. Does this go back to the age of 17? Yes. Do we need any more information? Can he release it? So this is the feeling. The word persecution might not be totally appropriate, but it's the word that's contained within this card. So it will be that feeling of being a victim or persecuted or something like that.
Jazz, I think I already know what it is. How's that?
Okay. Do you want to share that or not?
It's within the exact same context of what I told you when I first moved. We had neighbors across the street, and I was I grew up in a rural setting where there weren't very many other people around anywhere. And then I moved to a suburban setting where it was just very different from what I had been used to. And I felt like I was very naive and unequipped to deal with social interactions with new people. And on a personal level, I'm an extremely sensitive, empathic person. So that whether this is correct or not, I'm telling you what my experience of being this way is. It is to me as if I feel 100 times more than other people feel. I am astonished at how other people are not feeling that more often than not. The level of whether it's bliss or agony, it doesn't matter. My capacity is huge, and I feel very intensely whatever I feel. Sometimes that's a wonderful gift, and sometimes it's a dreadful curse. And so at a time when I was naively bumbling around looking for acceptance, welcoming, belonging in the form of new friendships, because I had been ripped out of the very different environment I had been growing up in and placed in a new one, which was, it was tougher. I had a real issue with, you could say, kid across the street kind of thing. It was actually the boyfriend of the kids across the street, one of the girls. And this guy turned on me so directly, so personally, so intently, and so cruelly that I couldn't process it at all. I could not even believe a person would be doing the things that he was doing. And I've actually had to act out in my own mind, coming back and facing him as I am now. Especially, I'll add this, for a man. I don't know if it's the same for a woman, but for a man to have to face an adversary like that is a different, it's a different bag of beans. There's dignity and self-respect involved in a tremendous way for a man. And I don't think I'd ever been weaker in my life than during the time when that guy was somebody I had to confront. And I've never been satisfied with how I dealt with him. And the things he did to me, and the way I responded in comparison to how I wish I had responded in the moment, left a crater in me, to be honest with you, and have helped to shape how I evolved and became later. I guess sometimes failure can be fertilizer for growth. I would consider how I processed him to be a failure, and I would consider it to have made good compost for the future, because I never would do that again and didn't do it again.
So there's quite a few aspects in there which would benefit from being looked at with Fast Track. But what we will do, we will release today the overwhelm, because that's what all that is, of not being able to cope, and then all the judgment that came in. And let's see what happens. And we'll what was the name of the guy, the boy?
Adam.
All right. Now this memory, or what's being given to our attention, is not in your heart, it's outside your heart, but it will be blocking your heart. It will be there to protect your heart. Of course, your heart doesn't need protecting. Human beings think our hearts need protecting, but your heart's like, no, give me the full spectrum. So let's see what we can do with that. So use your fingers again and just follow that same route over the top of your head, repeating what I say and changing the words in any way you think is better for you, Brian. I fast track the release.
I fast track the release.
Of all overwhelm.
Of all overwhelm.
Connected to persecution.
Connected to persecution.
Going back to the age of 17.
Going back to the age of 17.
Including all aspects of kids across the street.
Including all aspects of the incidents with the kids across the street.
Adam. And all my judgments of myself.
And all of my judgments about myself.
Can we do some forgiveness here, Brian?
Say this again.
Can we do some forgiveness here?
Yeah, definitely.
I forgive myself.
I forgive myself.
I forgive Adam.
I forgive Adam.
And everyone else involved.
And everyone else that was involved. Now.
Take a deep breath.
I sense progress, but I also sense it's a little tough.
Right.
I don't feel 100% in one shot with this one, but I feel progress, but I can't say 100%.
No. Okay. So it's, let's just see what's happened to the numbers. Okay.
The wounds, Jazz, as if it needed to be said, the wounds from this were profound for me.
And there are different aspects that would be interesting to look at here, but probably not being viewed. All right, let's just check on the numbers. We had an 18 left. Is the level of overwhelm affecting Brian less than 18? Is it less than 10? Is it less than 5? Is it 0? Is it 1? Is it 2? So you've got 2% overwhelm left, but then there will be other things that are not overwhelmed that would need attention or would benefit from attention.
Say that part again, because I'm sorry, I got distracted by a visitor that I had to shoo away.
Okay, so the level of overwhelm that started at 68% is now reduced to 2.
Okay.
So that 2% could do with some looking at some point, but also other aspects of that, other strings. There will be other learnings for you to get.
Yeah, everything overlaps and is connected for sure. Yeah.
But the overwhelm, which we talked about being connected to technology, got nothing to do with technology. That was just the messenger. It's now down to 2%.
I love this, Jaz. What we started off with as, gee, I feel really incompetent with keeping up with how to use technology, was, kind of like pulling the handkerchiefs out of the magician's jacket. We trace that back to, well, there's a physical imprint, which was caused by trauma, which originated from that phase of your life, which I immediately knew what it was. And then we got it down from 68 to 18, 50 points in one shot. And then we honed in and specified what was a particularly wounding aspect of that trauma. I knew immediately before you finished talking exactly what it was. And I was right there on my front lawn again. I knew I could be right there again. And I'll be honest with you. I think that the remaining 2% is shame. It's shame that I have for myself because I do not like the way I dealt with Adam. And I wouldn't do it again, but I did it. It was a shoulda, woulda, coulda, well, next time. But it really impacted me because it was at a time of my life when I was exponentially vulnerable. And it hurt. And I'm certain that that's what it was. And now we've got it down 66 out of 68, just from you doing a demo with me. And I wouldn't just blindly, I'm not one of those glazed eyed, everything's amazing. Wow. Yeah. I'm repulsed by that personally. And I don't do that. And I can say that I can feel my gut relaxed and my head a little less hot and heavy compared to how it was before we started. So
if I could just mention that what we also do in a fast track session is we reprogram your subconscious with qualities that you choose, which would support you.
Wonderful.
So say, for instance, yours might be grounded, it might be safe, who knows what that would be. But we discuss that at the beginning of the session and then reprogram you with that. And so you have that as a kind of a homework to take with you to build that into your subconscious and release even more of the old stuff that you don't need.
Good stuff. Final question as we wrap it up, Jaz. There seems to be some concurrence with fast track, and am I correct in saying it's kind of good friends with hypnosis in a way? Does it touch on hypnosis? Is it similar?
The reprogramming isn't hypnosis, but it can be perceived as hypnosis. So it's about being present and balancing right and left hemispheres of the brain and bringing in the new qualities. And my influences are EFT, emotion code, NLP, and everything else I've learned.
I'm vaguely familiar with the emotion code, something that I would like to look into more myself. But I'm very impressed with what you've demonstrated for us here today, Jaz. And I would like to tell people that are interested. Well, actually, one more question. what we just did as a demonstration online, can you, especially in the COVID world, can you offer your sessions, your services online exclusively, or is in-person required?
No, I've been working on Zoom
Right.
for 5, 6, 7, and I was working on Skype doing my work then. So, of course, many people prefer to do it in person, but we've all got so used to Zoom. It's way more convenient because sometimes these sessions can go very deep and you can feel tired, and it's great. You don't have to get in your car and drive home. So
Yeah.
Zoom definitely works.
Well, like you mentioned, how COVID has impacted all of us. On one hand, it has denied us a lot of the gathering together, merging of auras, all of these energy exchanges, which I think are nourishing and important and crucial. We've been denied a lot of that. But also, on the other hand, it's given us a really good experiential example of not needing to transport your body around for everything that you need to accomplish. And so there are two sides to look at it.
Absolutely, always.
So people can contact you to schedule online sessions of the fast track technique, Jaz?
Yes. And I also do a lot of workshops online, which are always very reasonably priced. I'm just creating something called Thriving Circles, and I'm beyond excited about
Thriving circles?
Yes.
I have no idea. Perhaps that's another episode. We could look into that. And also a mention that you have also created something which is primarily offered, not exclusively, but primarily offered for children, which is called Magical You. A quick mention before we conclude today.
So Magical You came from Fast Track because, as we've just experienced with you, this overwhelm started way before you were using computers or technology. And I think if we'd done a deeper fast track session, it would have gone back before the age of 17 because of your level of sensitivity. Yeah. And so in my experience with fast track, most adult people coming with adult situations, they would get taken back to much younger ages. Right. And so I decided to create a game for kids to play. They play it with an adult generally, but it's not for me telling them, oh, you got this, now we release it. They explore, they discover, and they make empowered choices through a game, hopefully, which means that they won't be carrying this stuff, Brian, like we have for, 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, it sounds like it's maybe a little bit preemptive fast track. So, those crucial years from approximately 4 to approximately 7, where so much of it starts going wrong.
If I can just mention, I'm very proud of this. Magical You just 2 weeks ago received an award for innovative tool for 2021 from the Royal Academy of Holistic Education, sponsored by the King of Bhutan.
Oh, well, whenever you're speaking of the King of Bhutan, you're in my realm.
I know.
I tried very hard in Bhutan to meet him, and I was told that there was a very good chance I was going to be able to, and so that will have to happen next time.
Right.
So, excellent, wonderful, and thank you for mentioning that, and thank you for all that you've shared today, Jaz. Could I ask you how people should most easily reach out to you?
Yes, Jaz, which is Jaz, just one Z.
For Americans, that's a Z.
Yeah, Z. Jaz at fasttracktechnique.com.
Okay, so the website is fasttracktechnique as spelled.com.
Absolutely. Yes.
And Jaz is Jaz, not two like the music, but one like the wonderful woman that we've just met and gotten to know today. Jaz, thank you so much for what you've done and what you've done for me within this offering that you've given us today.
Thank you.
I'm sure that all of our viewers are very, very pleased with everything that you've offered, and it's meaningful for them. And so we collectively thank you for that from our hearts. Thank you, Jaz. And I'd like to remind everybody, as always, in closing, to abide in thankfulness for your highest good, in the most benevolent outcome of the divine will.